Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be a part of the Bishkek Urban Forum, and I'm very thankful for the invitation of the city of Bishkek to speak to you about the Berlin strategy. First of all, I will refer to Michael Blinkin and Gerd Urhan, because the three names Michael named, Camilo Sitte, Robert Moses, and Jane Jacobs, they are symbolic persons for the approach to urbanism, which we recepted in our urban policy. And when you think of these three persons, we look upon the city first as a social space for human beings, and second, as a cultural heritage, as a place of beauty and feeling comfortable, and third, as a place which has to work fine in all its technical and functional aspects. And I will also refer to Gerd Urhan and his 4 principles of collective values, individual goals, inclusion, and co-creation. And these are the principles we try in the last 10 years to develop projects in the city of Berlin. These 2 topics explain our approach to planning procedures, and keep this approach in mind when I will show the examples. Next, please. My topics will be a short view to the current situation of Berlin, an explanation of the process of the Berlin strategy and why we do a Berlin strategy, and then I will explain the strategies and the examples. The current situation. Next, please. Next. You know all of the global trends of lack of resources, climate change, energy turnaround, demographic change, and urbanization. But what really makes Berlin's management of planning change is that we recognize that we cannot plan the city top-down because of a lack of financial possibilities, a lack of personnel, and the loss of experience in managing those processes. And because of the world has changed, the citizens and the investors, they want to be included in the processes, and we need active citizens which take responsibility for the development of the city. So let's, next please, view a little bit to the city population. And the development of the city population is on the one hand side increasing, which is good, but it's also aging. We are all get older and grayer. And what it makes it more complicated, the population gets more individual. We have very different households, from 1 person to 4 or 5 persons, from family or just people living together, from people living in Berlin and working in Frankfurt, international people, European people, regional people. And we have a very big spatial disparity. So we have growing regions and we have regions with decrease. We have regions getting poorer and regions getting richer. And to balance and to stabilize this population is one goal of Berlin's policy. So in 2012, Berlin grew for 50,000 inhabitants, and up to 2030 it will grow in the next 15 years up to 250,000 inhabitants more. This means that an average German city will move to Berlin, and we have to build infrastructure and we have to integrate these people in our society. The migrants coming to Berlin are international. They have a job, and they are educated on a very high level. They are European, and those Europeans are either also quite well off, or they come for economic reasons, because they leave regions in Europe which are economic not prosperous as Germany, and they try to found a new life in Berlin. And we have national and regional migration, which means people move to the city, to the big city, to have a comfortable life, to have more participation in culture, leisure, education, to have more contact to jobs. And to refer another time to Michael Blinkin, yes, my grandfather was the first in the family to have a car, and I am the first in the family to have no car. Next, please. Why do we work on a Berlin strategy? We work because of the lack of finance and the lack of personnel. We have to discuss priorities in the city, and we have to clear in which topics and in which area will administration work with own personnel and with own finance, and in which areas and in which topics administration has to find new partners, citizens, investors, institutions, however. And we will share responsibility, we will share finance, and we will share maintenance. Next, please. And so we started a process for the Berlin strategy, which started with a study about Berlin today. In which topics is Berlin strong, in which topics is Berlin weak? And from this definition of the status quo, we defined strategic topics, and from that point, strategic actions and measures, and we designed areas in which Berlin wants to be active. Next, please. And this Berlin strategy was discussed in a very wide process of participation. On the lower level of the picture, you can see all the measures of communication which aim for the single person, newspapers, internet, something like that. Then we have those small places called workshops. In these workshops, we discussed with experts, with citizens, with everyone who is included in the different topics, all the strategic themes. And then the big places, we had something like you do here. We have a city forum, and this city forum discussed the Berlin strategy. And it's a very similar framework as you do it. We tried to bring all people who are interested in urban development together and discuss and follow the process. And this process was followed, and these are the top small pieces by a group of experts who gave advice to the administration how to react, how to integrate all the topics which were named by the public. Next, please. The Senate, we hope, will approve the urban development concept, the Berlin strategy, in August or September this year, close after the summer break. And the Senate departments had preliminary works in the administration of urban development and the environment, but all other departments were included in workshops. Next, please. And this is an example for the Berlin Telegram. This is an internet-based system of information in which people can take part in the communication via SMS or Twitter or Facebook or email or something like this. Next, please. And when you look to the pictures, you can recognize this morning we try to bring together 200, 300, 400 people, and we also use different rooms in one building for plenary sessions or for work groups. And you can see that people had the possibility to point flags to the city plan for places which are very interested. And so we try to sample and accumulate all good ideas for Berlin. Next, please. And this is now nearly the result of all these procedures. We made flyers for each several strategy. We explain the strategy, we name the aims, and we name the measures which could be used to reach the aim of the strategy. And last but not least, next please. These are the areas of transformation. These are the areas in Berlin which will affected mostly by the transformation process which Berlin has, and this is a line which goes diagonal through the city. In the northwest, you have the airport of Tegel, which is still in use, but will be closed in 2 or 5 years. And in the southeast, you have the new airport, which will be opened, we hope, in 1 or 4 years. Next, please. So a short look to the strategies, one by one. Next, please. The first strategy is strengthen economy by smart knowledge. We have a very good experience in combination of university and economy. For this creates in Berlin new technology valleys. And for example, one process which started 20 years ago, Adlershof, we now have 15,000 jobs and 10,000 students in this area, and we earn 160 million in taxes a year in this area. And this means that after 10 or 15 years, the investment in the infrastructure runs back to the town. Next, please. To help this process, we have a master plan, City of Industry Berlin, and this is a cooperation of the Senate, the economy, the unions, and the chambers of commerce, for example, and it works on innovation, employees, communication. It thinks about better education for workers. It thinks about new places to be developed in this strategy. And the right sheet shows the urban development plan, production and industry. And in this plan you can see the motorway running through Berlin, and very close to this motorway, the most important industrial areas connected to the areas of universities. Next, please. And the newest project we try to realize is a research and industrial park at Tegel Airport, when Tegel Airport will be closed in 2 or 5 years, and we call it the Urban Tech Republic. This place shall be the place in which we want to develop new urban technologies, all technologies which deal with energy, with water, with mobility, and so on. And this project is a cooperation of the Senate of Science and Economy, startups, and it will contain co-working spaces, production, conference space, showrooms, industry. Co-working spaces and startups, and therefore I will refer a little bit to Gerd Urhan. Co-working spaces means that there's one room and it has different desks, and different entrepreneurs and enterprises can rent a desk in the room. And they use all the same infrastructure, like secretaries, like copy, like fax, like internet, and so on. So this is a very cheap approach for people who want to start a business to get a business room. Next, please. Creativity creates urban energy, strategy 2. Creativity is very important in Berlin. The culture of creativity, culture industry, creative industry, this is a topic in Berlin which really survived all the historic problems we had in the last 100 years, 2 world wars and the division of Berlin in 2 cities, but culture and creativity survived all this. Next, please. We had in 2006 nearly 23,000 mostly small and middle-sized enterprises, and they earned 21% of the GDP of Berlin, and they had 160,000 employees, which makes 10% of the Berlin employees. And this shows that creativity and small enterprises cannot be, should not be underestimated. They are very, very important because from a very small beginning, they can grow a huge enterprise. Next, please. And in the area in which this creative enterprises are very interested in, this is an old harbor area along the Spree River, which is in development in the moment, and these are the very early pieces of buildings from the last 10 years. Next, please. The next strategy is education and qualifying safe jobs. This is a topic which is not really a topic of urban planning, but to give an impact to this and to show the connection between well-educated worker and well-educated children. And therefore, I'm very, very happy that we have a lot of those people in the green t-shirts here, young people who get interest in urban development, which is very, very important. Next, please. Strategy 4, strengthen the diversity of boroughs. We heard a lot about the center of Bishkek and the different areas in Bishkek and the different development. Berlin was founded out of 7 cities and a lot of small villages. And so we have the political order for the last 100 years to balance this city, which was combined from different communities. And so to take care for justness in conditions of environment and healthcare, in housing supply, in retail and in greenery, this is very important for Berlin. And therefore, next place, we have a system of finding areas in the city in which we give a lot of subsidies. In Germany, we have a system of subsidy for urban development, and in Berlin, we concentrate this in 4 areas, which is the very west of Berlin, and 2 areas in the center of Berlin, and 1 area in the east. And in the east, for example, we will have in 2017 an international garden exhibition, and we use a small park we have, and which was developed in the last 10 years to the so-called Garden of the World, and this will be enlarged to the International Garden Exhibition. And this is, meanwhile, a very interesting point also for tourists. So this means we made an investment by the Senate in greenery to bring this area up. Next, please. And the next project I will show, this is right in the middle of the city, very close to the main station, very close to the offices of Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor. And this used to be a railway area, 40 hectares. And we want to develop it with 2 private companies. One of the company is the German railway company. And also referring to Gerd, we want to make out of these 2 owners 100 or 200 owners in this area. And we want to bring in this area also small investments. So we have in Berlin a group of people, we call it building group. So private families come together and create their own investment. So 10 or 12 or 15 families come together and they build up one house. The house they want, the house they like, the house they want to live in and make the children educate. So this area will be a very wide range area of investment. We will have an European motor oil company, but we will also have the investment of a family. Next, please. Where the city and the greenery are growing together. This is also very important in Berlin, and I noticed that Bishkek is also a very green city. I walked around all the parks and the alleys, and I really loved it. So in Berlin, it's a principle to develop the city careful and to keep the greenery and support high quality in the inner development and create a network of qualified urban spaces. Next, please. So from a point of landscape, we had a strategy, urban landscape. This is a plan of measures of the project according to the International Garden Exhibition in 2017. And this ranges from management of forests to small areas and kindergartens in the inner city. Next, please. A very outstanding landscaping process is the so-called Park Gleisdreieck. This used to be a railway area up to 65 hectares, and this was always thought to be a motorway. But the discussion in Berlin was so strong that administration was not successful to build this motorway. And this really was a good luck. Because when in 1990 the reunification of Berlin took place, one of the first big projects, I'm sure you know, the Potsdamer Platz came. The investors of this project had to pay money. This is also a German law. They had to pay money to build new greenery. And out of this money, we were able to buy the lot, to finance the planning, to finance the building, and to finance the communication and the participation process. So this was an amount of money of 24 million euros, which was spent in this park. And this park, on the one hand side, it is an integrated park, a part of the overall city greenery system, but for the neighboring areas, which are living areas, this is the most important greenery invention in the last 100 years. And therefore, this planning process was made very carefully with participation of the people. And when you come there, you will find families, you will find people alone, you will find people making party, people dancing, people going with bikes and with skateboards, and all different groups of people can find the place in this park. Next, please. I will, yeah. Heading for climate metropolis. Next, please. Oh, that's the... No. So until they will find the next plan. We made urban development climate, especially for climate adaptation. So we pointed out areas in the city which are very in need to be improved in terms of climate. Stop. No more. No, one more. Yes, this is urban development plan climate. And next, please. Strategy 8, shape the future together, participation. And I will show some different kinds of participation. Next, please. Next. Next. Yeah. The German planning law makes the administration to create participation in all procedures of creating planning rules. And this is an example for this legally fixed participation. Next, please. When we thought about Tegel Airport, we recognized this is too less. So we arranged workshops with international architects and with people of the city to think about different development aims which could take place in Tegel Airport. Next, please. And these are pictures from people working together. Next, please. And these workshops were integrated in an architecture of communication. So on the basis of the workshops, we had panel discussions, so-called site conferences, in which 100, 200 people like today can discuss this process. Next, please. And this is a picture in which in Germany quite famous people discuss the development in Tegel Airport. Next, please. And this is a picture which could have been taken also today. People from administration, citizens, architects listening to the conference and asking questions and bringing and take part in the discussion. Next, please. So that's the Berlin strategy. Thank you very much for your attention.